Okay, welcome everyone to SERx. We're in room 2, part 1, and today the host for the first session is Dave. So, Dave, do you want to welcome our first clinician?
Well, good morning, all in the Southeast region and the Southeast Region Convention. I'm Dave Berman. Glad to be here this morning. Our first clinician this morning is an N-scale bend tracker, member of the Palmetto Division, developer on engine driver and JMRI projects, and the provider of an RPI-JMRI ready-to-run image for the Raspberry Pi. He enjoys dispatching on other people's layouts, just getting started in ops on his small home layout. For this first clinic this morning, let's welcome Steve Todd.
Hi, good morning. Good to see everybody or hear everybody this morning. Appreciate the intro there, Dave. I have a lot to cover in a few minutes, so I'm going to kind of skip some of the pleasantries and jokes and that sort of thing. And I'm going to jump straight into sharing my screen. And let me do this and click there. And I believe that I can do this. Control F5. Okay, does that look good, Dave? Can you see that?
Looks good to me when we get Brad to share.
Okay. Okay. So again, my clinic title is Basic JMRI Operations with No Paper. My name's Steve Todd. That link is where the clinic is located. If you have some trouble seeing these screens, maybe I put the text a little small. That thing in the right-hand corner, you're not supposed to be able to read it yet. But if you can not see that, there's the link. It's mctodd.com/clinic.pdf. Just download it and watch it on your own computer. Kind of follow along if you'd like. All right, my goal today is starting from nothing. I want to show how to set up a simple railroad operations on your layout using JMRI. Even if you've never done it before with JMRI, maybe even if you've never done operations at all in any situation. And I'm going to include, by the end of it, the use of mobile devices to replace all the printed stuff, the switch lists, the car cards, the things you might be familiar with that other operations have printed out. I'm not going to do the printing out at my layout, so I'm going to kind of show you how that works. Okay, let's get started. Number one thing that I want to encourage you is don't wait. If you're thinking about operations, I thought about it for a long time. I had operations, I'd gone to other locations and saw some great layouts and said, man, this is great. I love doing this operations, but I'm going to wait until my layout's bigger. I'm going to wait until I have more industries in an expansion area that I was thinking about doing. Don't do that. Just let me encourage you not to wait, because if you wait until you're completely ready, you'll never get there. You'll just keep putting it off. So one day I decided, let's just go do this thing. I watched a clinic, an NMRA clinic that's available on the NMRA website by John Stewart. Go watch that if you want to, and very informative. He's a lot more entertaining than I am. But one of the things he said as well is start small, get started, because you're going to make mistakes. No matter what you do, you're gonna make errors. So don't try to wait until you understand it all. Some people advise, oh, read the manual 3 or 4 times. That doesn't work for me. It's better for me to go get started. The nice thing about doing it with the computer is there's nothing lost if you do it wrong. Go back and change it and do it again. It's not like you're spending money on this. This is free. These tools I'm showing you are all free. You will learn as you go through them. You will get better as you go around. And again, as I've said, and I'm going to emphasize this, start very small. Add just a few cars in one yard. If you have multiple yards, just add a few cars and a couple of industries. That way there's less to redo if you decide, oh, I'd rather do it this way, or I'd rather put these descriptions in. You will have less to undo if you start small and give it a try. I literally started with 4 cars and 2 locations, and 3 locations, 2 industries, and 1 yard, and that's what I'd recommend that you do if at all possible. So, okay, the basics of things. I'm assuming you have JMRI installed. I'm not going to cover that in any way. If you don't have JMRI installed, there's some other videos to go find about that. JMRI.org is a good place to look. Some people ask me, is Panel Pro or Decoder Pro, which should I use? They're the same program. The only difference is some of the screens that you see at the beginning. So Don't worry about which one that you have. Both of them will do the steps I'm looking at. Do I need a live connection to my layout? No, you can use a simulated connection. I'm not going to discuss much about that, but just understand that this operation stuff does not, at the level I'm doing it, level I'm showing, have any live connection to your layout itself. So you can do it with a simulated connection. You can do it with your layout connected. First step is really add the operations menu. So if you'll go over to the side, you will see, get this out of the way. If you'll see that I have tools, operations, settings, and then the next page I'll show you where that goes. But that's how you get into it the very first time. Another thing I should point out is there's no story here. One thing that some folks talk about is what's the story of your layout? What are you moving from place to place? I'm not even trying to do that at this level. I'm saying I have a box car in the yard. I think I should move it to my to this industry, this MB Samuel packaging. That movement makes sense. I'm not thinking in my mind yet what type of product is in it. Keeping it simple, very, very simple. I'm just moving the car from one place to another. I say closed cars because those are even more simple because you're not moving an open gondola and thinking there's no load inside it. So again, moving closed cars is the way to start. Let's go on to the next page here. You'll see that this is the settings page that I just talked about. I'm gonna hide that. The settings page, whoops. Settings page. Railroad name is important. Just type that in. The scale, put that in. It matters with the feet that you'll see. The operations add to the main menu. If you look over on this side, you'll see that. I've circled that. That's what you need to check. And then up at the top, kind of the first thing that you need to start thinking about is what direction does your layout go? Does it go north-south or east-west? Some layouts may be large enough and have enough complexity. You need both. To start out, I would not check both. I would check just the one that makes sense for your first few industries, and you'll see that in a little bit. In my case, I unchecked the north-south and checked the east-west, and then I hit save. All these screens have a save at the bottom that you need to be aware of. Okay, so once you do that, you have this operations menu that appears in your Panel Pro or your Dakota Pro. Under that menu are basically these options. The ones we're gonna work on are all listed here in this order: locations, tracks, cars, routes, and trains. Tracks are inside a location. A location can have one or more tracks. A location is simply a place on your railroad. Um, it's a place that has track, although it doesn't actually have to, but for simplicity, locations should have at least one track. They may have more than one track. So let's move on into look at that. Here's location. So here's the first screen where we're actually setting some data. Is we're looking at the location screen. We have this add button, and it pulls up this information. Basically, you're given the name to that location. I have an industry with a couple of tracks called Prk Tailing, so I type that in as my location name. You press location, add location. One thing to be aware of that confuses some people with JMRI ops is that all of these other fields are grayed out. You can't click on yards. You can't click on the rolling stock type, and it's kind of confusing. You have to type in the name and then press the add, and then the next screen will show you all those fields enabled. Don't ask me why that's the way it is. It's the way it was written. Okay, so let's take a look on my layout. This is one of my locations called MB Samuel Packaging. If you notice, it's a trailing point switch for westbound trains. This is the main line, and this is west. West is to the right in the photograph you're looking at. And so this is a trailing point switch for westbound trains. If you see there's a bumper here, there's no eastbound train can switch this track. I don't have a runaround. And so in a moment, you'll see where we can specify in the setup that this location should only be serviced by westbound trains. So as you're adding a location, that's one of the key things to put in. Another key thing to put in is how many cars can it hold? This location can hold 3 cars because I have 3 doors, 1, 2, 3. And there's probably enough track here for 2 more. At the moment, I'm not going to even worry about that. I'm just going to put enough places to put 3 cars. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to define it as one track, and three long enough to hold 3 cars. One day I might come back and instead of one track, I may have door 1, door 2, and door 3 as my tracks, and then be more specific. But again, that's complicating things too early, in my opinion. So we need to not do that. Keep it simple. Here's the screen where I'm going to enter that information for that location. As you see, there's a lot of car types that can be serviced. There's directions. Okay, here I've checked west. Again, we had the conversation. Westbound is the only type of car train that can service this location. So I'm checking west. I give it a name, obviously. For simplicity, I'm saying just boxcars. Obviously, that facility might could service some other things. You might have different name type boxcars, but just keep it simple to begin with. And then, very important, I say the tracks at this location are of a type of spur. Now, these are types: spur and yards, classification, and staging. Spurs are important because they change loads to empties and vice versa. So if you bring in a loaded car on a spur and you drop it, when you pick it up again, the system, JMRI, will change that to empties. At the level I'm talking about, that really doesn't matter because I'm not really looking at that. But if you're going to set it up, you can set it up correctly by saying, this is a spur, not a yard. These other two I've not even used yet, so I have no suggestions. Again, the direction was west. Locations don't have to have tracks. All of mine have a track, so I'm going to press add spur track in just a moment here and move on to the next screen. And the type of cars are box cars. So that's very important as well. So let's jump to the next slide. Okay, now this is where you arrive after you press add spur. This is entering one track. I gave it a very short name. Again, this location is MB Samuel Distribution or MB Samuel Packaging. I don't need to repeat that in the name of the track. And that'll make a little more sense when you see it in use. But just remember that you could probably put short names here. And again, this is the type of thing, don't get analysis paralysis. Just put a name, and when you start using the tool, and you say, "Oh man, I need more information about that location," then you come back and change it, and wow, bang, everything's got that new name. Okay, the length is important. I'm gonna make all my cars 50 feet long. So to fit 3 of them there, I need a length that's greater than 50 feet. So I chose 160 feet. That is not the actual length of that track by any means. It simply is the right math to let 3 50-foot cars sit there. It could be 190. If I made it 200 or 210, then I'd be in danger of trying to park 4 cars there, which is not what I want to do in this particular case. Okay, this track, I can't check that box because I've already said this entire location is west only. So it doesn't give you a choice. If you had a location that had tracks in each direction, you could specify this track is west and another track would be east. So you can hit add spur track and that'll add it to the database. Okay. So if I come back, here are the locations. In fact, this picture was taken a bit later after I put all my locations in. I went and added the yard, which is a yard. And then I added some spurs tracks for these other locations. These are all one track. And Prk Tailing is 2 tracks. So you see the 2 there, you see the total length. And again, this is really what the system is going to use to decide whether to put a car in there or not. Right now, when this picture was taken, I had 3 cars there and I had 162 feet taken up for this. The yard, I made the yard huge. This is bigger than the yard is because I want all my cars to fit in the yard regardless of the math. So I didn't make that difficult on myself. I just made that a big enough number, made each track 1,100 basically. Okay, all are spurs except the yard. The rolling stock shows, this column shows the current count of cars. And these columns, pickups and setouts, are what's pending. So at the moment, when I took this picture, I didn't have any trains in process. I didn't have anything moving. This was before I did that. So you see zeros on all of those. Let's move on to the next slide. Prk Tailing. All right. This is the trailing point switch for westbound trains. Again, I have no runaround, so I have no east trains. And it's 2 tracks. If you look at the photograph, you see there's 2 tracks. I come back later and make it fancy and have a spot for whatever this thing is and a spot for whatever this thing is and an unloading area here. I can make that harder, but for today, it's 2 tracks. All right, here's the list of cars. We're going to go to cars. Enter the cars. I guess I should have mentioned that when you look at this list, you can immediately see that I wasn't very smart. I was smart with this one. MB Samuel Distribution, track 1. I got smart here. Here I said Ridgeway Paint, and I called the track Ridgeway Paint. That's not necessary. I don't sweat the road numbers. In N-scale, it's very hard to see the road numbers. So I started by typing them in, a few. Then I kind of got lazy and just started putting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If the car type, if the type of car and the color and the road name are unique, then you really don't have to have the numbers. HO scale or people that get more interested in tracking individual numbers, feel free to do that. I'm keeping it simple. I'm not worried about the numbers. I'm not going to talk about kernels because I'm running out of time here. Okay,